I still remember the exact moment my phone lit up. One message, one sentence, meant for someone else, not me. In that instant, my entire world shifted, and I felt the kind of silence that makes your heart stop. It was a regular evening, or at least it was supposed to be. The television was on in the background, washing the living room in that soft blue light that makes everything look a little less real. A crime show was playing, something about a missing person and a husband who knew more than he was saying. I was not really watching. I was scrolling, half awake, half numb, doing what people do when they are tired of their own thoughts. He was in the shower. I could hear the water running, steady and loud, like it was trying to drown out the world. His phone was on the coffee table, face down like it always was now. It used to be different. It used to sit anywhere, on the kitchen counter, on the bed, in his jacket pocket. It never used to matter. Then, somewhere along the way, he started placing it face down. Screen hidden, notifications muted, little things you notice even when you pretend you do not. I was not looking for anything. That is the part that still stabs me when I think about it. I was not searching his phone. I was not suspicious in that moment. I was just there, just existing, just trying to get through another weekday evening. The phone buzzed once, hard enough to make it vibrate against the glass. Then it lit up, the screen bright in the dim room. My eyes moved toward it out of reflex. You can't help that. Movement, light, you look. A name I did not recognize filled the top of the screen. A short name, simple. No last name, no context. Just a first name I had never heard him say out loud. Then I saw the message. I cannot stop thinking about last night. I wish you were here instead of with her. That was it. One sentence. That was all. Not even a long message, not a flood of texts, just that. For a few seconds, my brain refused to understand. It is strange how the mind resists what it does not want to believe. I read it once, twice. My pulse slowed instead of sped up, like my body was shutting down bits of itself to save energy. Last night, with her. I stared at the words until the room around me blurred. The sound of the shower grew distant. The television voices turned into a low hum. All that was clear were the letters on that screen and the feeling that the floor had shifted an inch to the left and everything inside me had to rearrange to stay standing. I did not touch the phone at first. I just watched the message sit there on the screen, glowing in the dark like an accusation. Part of me wanted to pretend I had not seen it, that if I did not move, if I did not react, this moment would dissolve and give me back the life I thought I had. But the words kept repeating in my head. I cannot stop thinking about last night. I wish you were here instead of with her. With her. That was me. I was her. My throat felt dry. I swallowed, and it hurt. I think I even smiled for a second, a tiny, broken curve of disbelief, because there is a point where shock almost feels like a joke the universe is playing on you. He would not. That was my first thought. He would not do that. Not him. Not us. We had problems. Sure, everyone does. We argued about money, about plans, about how late he stayed at work, about how tired he always was. But cheating existed in some other world, attached to other people, not us, not in our home, not on our couch. The phone buzzed again. The new message slid in under the first one. Do you think she suspects anything? No question mark, just words. Fast, careless, like they had talked like this many times before. My hand moved on its own. I picked up the phone. It did not even have a lock screen. He had turned off the password months ago, telling me it was easier that way if I ever needed to use it. I remember thinking that was a sign of trust. I remember feeling safe because of it. Now, that same openness felt like a knife turned in my hands. The chat window was still open. I saw the conversation history without needing to scroll. The last few lines were there, waiting for me. Her, I miss your hands on me. Him, soon, I promise. Her, I hate that you have to go back to her after this. Him, it is just for now. The date on the messages was not last week, not last month. It was tonight, an hour ago, right before he came home with that tired smile and the excuse of traffic and a project that ran late. I read each line slowly, like I was forcing myself to swallow glass. My mind kept trying to line up the version of him I knew with the version of him in these words. The one who kissed my forehead when he walked through the door, the one who made jokes about getting old, the one who held my hand in the dark when I could not sleep. And then the other him, the one who promised his hands to someone else, the one who called me her, like I was some temporary inconvenience, the one who believed this double life was something he could maintain. I did not cry, not yet. There was a kind of numbness that wrapped around me, thick and dense, like fog. My body was still. My breathing was slow. It felt like my heart had taken a step back, watching from a distance. The shower turned off. The sound snapped me out of that frozen state. Panic rushed in all at once. He could walk in any second. He could see the phone in my hand. He could see my face. I looked at the messages again, as if I needed to confirm that I was not imagining things, as if my brain needed one last confirmation before reality shifted for good. I scrolled up. There were more messages, dozens. Some days with gaps, some nights with clusters of texts. There were photos too, but my mind refused to focus on them. I saw skin, I saw sheets, I saw the inside of a car, I saw the edge of a tattoo that I knew did not belong to me. This was not a moment. This was not a mistake. This was a pattern, an entire hidden world that had been running parallel to mine while I made dinner and did laundry and asked him if he wanted to watch something together. The bathroom door opened. My body jolted. I locked the phone out of reflex and placed it back on the coffee table, screen down, just like it had been before. My hand shook for a second, then stilled. My face felt rigid, like the muscles had forgotten how to move. He walked into the living room with a towel around his waist, rubbing his hair. He looked relaxed, soft, unburdened. "Hey," he said, "still up?" His voice sounded normal. That was the worst part. Normal, familiar, that same casual tone he always used when nothing was wrong. "Yeah," I answered. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, a little flat, a little too calm. I forced my eyes to stay on the television, even though I couldn't have told you what was happening on the screen. He sat on the other end of the couch, close enough for me to smell the soap on his skin. For a second, the urge to turn to him and scream surged through me, wild and loud, to hold the phone up to his face and demand he look at the words I had just read. Instead, I stayed quiet, because in that moment, something inside me shifted from shock into something else, something sharper. I realized that this was my only advantage. I knew. He did not know that I knew. I could feel my heartbeat again now, steady and deliberate. Each beat sounded like a decision. I was not going to explode, not yet. I was going to watch. I was going to listen. I was going to let him talk. Every word, every glance, every excuse he had ever given me started replaying in my mind, and I could feel pieces clicking into place, forming a picture I had not wanted to see. He reached for his phone without really thinking about it. It was habit by now. Thumb, stretch, grab. I watched his hand move, slow and casual, like it was nothing. He picked it up. The screen lit for a second, then went dark again. He did not check the messages. He did not look worried. He had no idea his other life had just leaked into mine. He leaned back, resting his head on the cushion. "Long day," he murmured. "You have no idea." He closed his eyes. He was right. He had no idea what kind of night it had just become. I did not sleep that night. He fell asleep beside me easily, like nothing in his world was out of place. His breathing steadied within minutes, that slow, rhythmic sound I used to find comforting. I lay there wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the messages over and over in my mind. "I miss your hands on me. Soon. It is just for now." Normal couples fall asleep thinking about work, about weekend plans, about whether they left the stove on. I fell asleep, eventually, thinking about the moment our stories stopped being just ours. It is strange how a relationship can feel solid until one detail reveals it was always on a cracked foundation. From the outside, we looked fine, stable, boring even. We had been together for 6 years, married for 3. We had routines that people are supposed to admire. Friday night takeout, Sunday grocery runs, a shared calendar on the fridge with appointments and birthdays, and little hearts on our anniversary. When people asked how we met, I always told the story proudly. He was the one who stopped to help me with a flat tire on a busy road when everyone else just drove past. He made a joke about it being the most dramatic way to meet someone, and I laughed too hard because I was nervous and embarrassed and grateful all at once. He stayed with me until the tow truck came, then insisted on buying me coffee afterward, because, as he put it, near-death highway experiences deserved caffeine. He was charming in that quiet, steady way. Not flashy, not loud, just present. He remembered small details. The book I said I wanted to read, the way I took my coffee, the fact that my hands always got cold in movie theaters. He would slip his hand into mine in the dark and warm my fingers like it was the most natural thing in the world. People told me I was lucky. For a long time, I believed them. We moved in together after a year, got married 2 years after that. The wedding was simple, small venue, close friends, family, a playlist we argued about for weeks before finally giving up and letting the DJ decide. We said our vows with shaky voices and wet eyes. I remember the way he looked at me when he slid the ring onto my finger, focused, serious, like he meant every word. I did not question that look then. If you asked me when things started to change, I would not be able to point to a single moment. It was a drift, not an explosion. A slow shift that only looks obvious when you look backward. He started working later. That was the first thing. At first, it made sense. His company was taking on new clients, there were deadlines. He complained about them at dinner, about meetings that could have been emails, and coworkers who did not pull their weight. I listened, nodded, offered sympathy, told him he was doing a good job. He would squeeze my hand and tell me he did not know what he would do without me. Then the late nights became more frequent. Once or twice a week turned into 4 or 5. There were team drinks after work, last-minute calls, just going to finish this project before quarter end. Each excuse was close enough to believable that I did not press too hard. That is the thing about trust. You do not measure each detail for accuracy. You just accept the story because you want to. I tried to adjust. I made dinner for one, I watched shows alone, I told friends he was busy, but we were fine. I filled the empty spaces with chores and podcasts until my brain went quiet. The fights started small. I would ask what time he thought he would be home. He would say he did not know. I would say I just wanted to plan dinner. He would hear it as an accusation. Why are you acting like I am out partying? You know how much pressure I am under. I never said he was partying. I never said anything like that. But the way he snapped made me wonder if he was answering a question I had not asked yet. Then there was the phone. It used to live everywhere, on the counter, on the coffee table, on the arm of the couch. He would leave it lying around, screen up, humming with notifications he did not bother to check. Sometimes he would hand it to me and ask me to read something out loud. Then it changed. The shift was subtle at first. He started carrying it with him more, putting it in his pocket when he left the room, even if he was just going to the kitchen. Answering messages with his body turned slightly away, placing it face down. "Don't you hate it when people are always on their phones?" he said once, joking. I nodded, because on the surface, he was right. "It is just work," he told me another time when I glanced at the screen lighting up in his hand. "These clients are so needy." I did not have a reason to doubt him. But doubt does not always need a reason. Sometimes it just needs repetition. Late nights, face-down phone, short temper, less eye contact, more apologies that felt less and less like they belonged to anything specific. I would lie in bed and listen to him typing on his phone in the hallway, the soft tap of his fingers, the faint blue glow slipping under the door. When I asked who he was talking to, he would say things like, just replying to an email or one of the guys from work. I wanted to trust him, so I did, because the alternative was stepping into the kind of reality that I knew would be hard to come back from. We still had good days. That is what made it all worse. We still had mornings where he would wake me up with coffee and a kiss. We still had moments in the kitchen where we danced badly to songs from playlists we made years ago. We still laughed about inside jokes no one else would understand. A stranger would have looked at us and seen a normal couple, maybe even a happy one. That is what I held on to. The good moments, the familiar gestures, the history. There were no obvious signs, no lipstick on collars, no strange perfume, no credit card charges for hotel rooms, just distance I could not explain, and a feeling I kept pushing down. The first real fracture was about my question, not his answer. Do you still want this? I asked one night, months before the text. We were in bed, lights off, faces lit only by the glow of his phone. The question slipped out of me unexpectedly, surprising both of us. It had been sitting in my chest for weeks, quietly pressing on my ribs. That night, it finally found a crack to escape through. He lowered the phone a little. "What kind of question is that?" he said. "A real one." He sighed, heavy and impatient. "You know how much I am dealing with at work. I am exhausted. You are reading into everything right now. It is like nothing I do is enough for you." That is not what I said, but it was what he heard, or what he wanted to hear, so he would not have to answer the deeper part of the question. I dropped it. We did not talk about it again. Life continued. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and I convinced myself that I was being dramatic, that relationships go through phases, that maybe we were just in a rough one. Then his wardrobe changed. He started dressing better, not in a way that screamed anything obvious, just sharper, shirts that fit a little too well, new cologne that he said he bought because there was a sale, haircuts more often than before. When I teased him about trying to impress someone, he rolled his eyes and told me he just wanted to look professional. "You like it, do not you?" he asked, smiling. I did like it. That is the hardest part to admit. I liked the effort. I liked feeling like I was with someone other people might look at twice. I did not know he was practicing that look for someone else. Lying in bed that night, after reading the messages, all of those moments replayed with a new filter. The late nights, the mood swings, the defensiveness, the sudden concern about his appearance. It was like watching scenes from a movie I thought I had already understood, only to find out there was a second story running underneath the first. His breathing stayed steady beside me. At one point, he rolled closer, arm draping over my waist out of habit. My body stiffened. The weight of his hand felt foreign now, like it belonged to a stranger who had borrowed his face. I stared at the clock. 2 hours passed, then 3. Somewhere around the 4th, my eyes finally burned enough to close. Sleep came in short, jagged pieces, filled with images I did not want. His hands on someone else. His voice whispering the things he used to say to me. 2 lives overlapping in ways I had not seen until now. When the alarm went off in the morning, he groaned and hit snooze. I turned it off before it could ring again. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You look tired," he said. "You have no idea," I replied. He smiled, not really listening. "Another long day," he said. "Yeah," I answered. "For both of us." He stood, stretched, and grabbed his phone from the nightstand. He did not check my face, he checked the screen. For a split second, I watched his expression. There was a flash there, something small, almost invisible, when he saw the name in his notifications, the same name I had seen. He cleared it away quickly. Then he looked at me. "You want coffee?" he asked. I nodded, sure. He walked out of the room, phone in hand, and I realized that my life had split in 2, the one where I did not know, and the one that had just begun, where I did. I was not the same person in both, and he had no idea who he had just created in me. The day after I discovered the messages felt unreal. like I was walking through someone else's life. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. The kitchen counters were still cluttered with yesterday's dishes. The sun still pushed soft light through the blinds. The coffee machine still sputtered to life the moment he pressed the button. But underneath that ordinary morning was a steady, pulsing truth. He was cheating on me, and he had no idea that I knew. He handed me a cup of coffee like always and kissed the top of my head. I let him. I let everything play out exactly the way he expected it to, because I had spent most of the night thinking, and one clear thought kept rising to the surface through all the noise. If I confronted him now, he would lie, he would deny, then twist, then flip the blame, then cry, then promise, then swear. And I would have nothing but a handful of screenshots and a broken heart. So I said nothing. Not yet. I needed more than a confession. I needed the truth in its full, ugly shape. How long, how deep, who she really was, and what he was planning next. Because people do not cheat in isolation. Affairs are not accidents. They grow roots, they grow routines, they grow future plans whispered in the dark. I wanted to know those plans. He went to work that morning like any other day. Same jacket, same rushed goodbye, same half smile as he grabbed his keys. I listened to the door close behind him, then I exhaled for the first time since the night before. The quiet that followed him out felt heavy at first, then strangely powerful. I was alone, but it did not feel like loneliness. It felt like clarity settling like dust in the air. I turned off my phone, turned it back on, held it in my hands for a moment, thinking about how quickly a life can split open with a single message. The wrong text, that was all it took. I sat on the couch where I first saw it, facing the same table, the same spot where his phone had revealed everything. I could still feel the panic in my chest from the night before, but now it had settled into something darker, something quieter, something sharp enough to guide me. I opened my laptop and searched for the name I saw on his screen. Her name was short and common, but there were still too many possibilities. Social media profiles, tagged photos, posts, likes. I scrolled through strangers' faces, hunting for patterns. But nothing felt connected yet. This was not enough. So I moved to the next thread, his location history. People forget how much their phones track, not just steps or playlists or browsing habits, places, patterns, routes. When you know someone's routine, even small deviations stand out like stains. For months, he had told me he was at the office until late. But when I opened the map history, the first thing I felt was a sinking drop in my stomach. His route home on several nights did not trace a straight line from work to our house. It looped, it stopped, it lingered. Same neighborhood, same street, same time window, again and again. I clicked the street name. An apartment complex popped up. Unit numbers, parking lot entries, security gate, all the things people use to hide in plain sight. I stared at the map for a long time, my finger hovering over the screen. I imagined him parking there with that same distracted expression he had when he walked through our door on those late nights. I imagined him checking his reflection in the mirror, straightening his shirt, rehearsing a lie. I imagined him walking up her stairs the same way he walked into our home. The thought made my chest tighten so suddenly that I had to sit back until my breathing steadied. I closed the map and opened his laptop. He rarely used it, mostly for work when he needed a bigger screen. His email was still logged in, work folders everywhere. But amidst the spreadsheets and reports, there were small signs of him, shifting, preparing, maybe even planning. Hotel confirmations. But they were not for future dates. They were from the past. 2 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. Each one aligned with nights he claimed he was traveling for work. He always said the company booked the rooms for him, so he never brought home receipts. That used to make sense. Now it was a crack filled with light. I clicked on one reservation. 2 guests. The name field was blank for the second person. I clicked the next. Same thing. Only the last hotel booking showed a clue. His request for one king bed. My stomach twisted. I sat there for a while, breathing slowly, the truth sinking in deeper with each exhale. I was beginning to see the outline of the affair, the shape of it, but the details were still hazy. Affairs are stories built in shadows. You have to shine light on every corner to understand them. My next step was the call log. His phone was with him, but our shared phone plan synced to the account online. Our billing page kept a record of every number dialed, every text sent. There it was, her number. Repeated, layered, night after night. Short calls, long calls, midday calls, calls that coincided with work breaks, lunches, drives home. It went back at least 8 months, maybe more. 8 months? I felt the breath leave me again. Not a gasp, not a sob, just a slow exhale that carried pieces of me with it. 8 months meant this was not boredom, not a mistake, not a moment of weakness. It was deliberate. It was maintained. It was nurtured. It was a second relationship. And I was the one living blind inside the first. I sat with that realization for a long time. I could feel something shifting inside me, a kind of cold resolve settling in. This was not just betrayal. This was strategy. He had created a life where I was an accessory, not a partner, a placeholder he returned to when the thrill ended, someone he kept just stable enough so I would not look too closely. I closed the browser, closed the laptop, pulled my knees up to my chest, and let the silence wrap around me. The house felt unfamiliar now. Every corner held echoes of moments I once believed were real. The dinners we shared at this table, the nights we spent watching movies on this couch, the mornings he kissed my cheek in this kitchen. Were those moments true? Or were they rehearsed? A trained performance he gave before slipping back into the arms of someone waiting for him across town? I stood up and walked slowly through the rooms of our home. The hallway, the bedroom, the bathroom. Each space felt like a museum of a life already gone. His jacket on the chair, his toothbrush by the sink, his cologne on the dresser. I found myself staring at the ring on my finger. I turned it once, twice. The metal felt heavier than usual, like it knew something I did not, like it had been carrying a secret with him all this time. My phone buzzed. A message from him. On my way home, let's get dinner tonight, my treat. I stared at the words. Polite, warm, harmless. But now, every message came from a man who lived 2 lives. I typed a reply slowly. Sure, sounds good. My hands were steady now, because I knew what came next. I would not scream, I would not accuse, I would not collapse in front of him, not until I had every piece of the truth, not until he had nowhere left to run, not until he realized that the wrong text had opened a door he could never close again. Tonight, I would watch him. Tomorrow, I would follow the truth. And soon, he would meet the version of me he created the moment he wrote those words to someone else. The next morning, I woke before the sun, long before his alarm, long before the world outside remembered to make noise. I lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the house, the air conditioner clicking softly, the distant sound of a car passing somewhere far down the street. He slept beside me, turned slightly away, his breathing slow and even, peaceful, innocent, or at least pretending to be. I watched him for a long moment, not because I missed the man I thought he was, but because I was trying to understand the one he had become, a stranger wearing the familiar shape of someone I used to love. His face looked relaxed, unburdened, unaware that everything had already changed. Maybe that was the part that stung the most. My world had cracked open, but his was still intact. Mine was full of questions, and his was full of lies he believed he could keep balancing. The alarm finally buzzed, and he groaned, stretching in that lazy way he always did. He turned toward me and smiled. It was automatic. It was practiced. It used to make me feel warm. This time it felt like someone had placed a thin sheet of ice between us. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I answered. My voice sounded calm, too calm. I knew he did not hear the difference because he did not look long enough to notice. He rolled out of bed and went straight for his phone. That was his first ritual every morning now, before brushing his teeth, before showering, before even drinking water. Always the phone. A notification lit up the screen when he picked it up. The same name from the night before. Short, crisp, innocent looking in a way that made it worse. His thumb hovered over the message for half a second before he swiped it away like a reflex, like someone brushing away crumbs. "Going to shower," he said, already walking out. I watched his back as he disappeared down the hallway. His shoulders, his posture, the towel hanging from his hand. I realized I knew that silhouette better than I knew my own reflection. And yet, standing there in the dim bedroom light, I felt like I was watching a stranger walk into my bathroom. As soon as the water started running, I got out of bed, grabbed my phone, and sat at the edge of the mattress. I opened the map again. That apartment complex address stared back at me. I studied it in a way I never studied anything for school, tracing the route from his work, the turns he made, the estimates of how long he lingered there each night. The pattern was too consistent to ignore, too deliberate to be random. I opened the call log next. Her number, again and again. Calls that lasted 17 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour on Sundays when he told me he was running errands. Short 3-minute calls sprinkled throughout the week. Check-ins, whispered plans. The invisible thread connecting them stretched across months of deception. The shower turned off. I closed the apps quickly and slipped my phone under the pillow. I did not want him to see me looking. Not because I felt guilty, but because I knew I needed more time, more answers, more certainty. If he saw even one flicker of suspicion on my face, he might start hiding things better. And I needed everything to stay exactly the way it was until I was ready to break it myself. He walked back into the bedroom with a towel around his waist, wiping steam from his face, humming under his breath. His mood was light, too light. He always acted happiest when he thought he had gotten away with something. "You want breakfast?" he asked, casual, like we were just two normal people starting a normal day. "Sure," I said. He cooked eggs, he made toast, he poured juice, he kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, the same way he always did. His lies fit so easily into the space between us that I almost admired the precision of it. Almost. The door closed. The house went quiet. Today was the day I found her. I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop and opened the call records again. I copied the number into a search bar. No results. Private lines do not show up easily. But social media was different. People leave their fingerprints everywhere online, even when they try not to. I took a different route. I searched his name. I filtered by tagged photos. I scanned posts from coworkers, company events, conferences, outings. And then I saw her. A woman standing beside him in a group photo from an office celebration. Her hand resting a little too close to his waist. His smile a little too wide. Their bodies angled subtly toward each other in a way most people would overlook. Her name was not tagged, but she was in 2 more photos, and then another, posted by someone else, each time standing close to him, each time with a familiar ease. I zoomed in on her face. She was pretty, in that effortless way that comes from confidence rather than vanity. Dark hair, warm eyes, a smile that looked gentle, smart, kind. Someone who would be good at pretending she understood boundaries while slipping around them. But the real confirmation came from something small. On her wrist in one of the photos was a tattoo, a delicate line, simple, elegant. I had seen that tattoo before, in the photo on his phone, the one I forced myself not to fully look at the night before. My stomach tightened. This was her. I clicked her profile. It was private, only 2 public posts, but her bio listed her workplace. Same company as his, same department, same floor. 8 months. They had been walking the same halls, eating the same catered lunches, sitting through the same meetings, while building something behind my back. Something with momentum. Something that required lies and secret texts and rehearsed excuses. I needed more. I scrolled through every tagged photo on her account. Nothing else obvious. She was careful. That made sense. Affairs require caution. I looked at the clock. It was 10 in the morning. He would be at work. She would be there too. Then a thought crossed my mind. A reckless one. One with teeth. I could go there. Not to confront them, not yet, but to see the truth for myself. To watch them interact. To see if the connection between them was as visible in real life as it was between their messages. But I stopped. Not yet. I needed more information before I risked being seen. Instead, I searched her name again, this time linked with the apartment complex address. And there it was, a rental listing from 2 years earlier. Same name, same location. Her place. The place he kept returning to. The place he slept some nights. The place he loved her in. The place he never mentioned to me. I felt my throat tighten. Not with tears, but with something colder. Something that felt like anger wrapped in patience. I opened the call log again. Her number. I copied it. My fingers hovered over the dial button, but I did not press it. Not yet. I was not ready to hear her voice. Not ready to give her any clue that I existed beyond the shadow she referred to as her. Instead, I saved the number under a different name, something anonymous, something he would never suspect. Then I made a decision. Tonight, I would follow him. Not to trap him, not to confront him, but to watch him walk into the truth with his own 2 feet. The next time he lied to me, I wanted to see his face as he did it. I wanted to witness the moment he chose her over me, because only then would I understand exactly what I was fighting against. Only then would I see the full shape of the betrayal I was now preparing myself to shatter. He thought he was careful. He thought he was safe. He thought he was balancing both lives with quiet confidence. But he forgot one thing. He forgot that the moment he sent that wrong text, he stopped controlling the story. And now I was the one writing the next chapter. I spent the entire afternoon rehearsing the moment I would follow him, not the confrontation, not the explosion, just the simple act of watching him walk into the life he tried so hard to hide. I had never shadowed anyone before. It felt strange to plan something like that. But when someone tears apart the world you built together, you start studying the pieces differently. You start learning the shape of every lie until you can predict the next one. He texted me around 5 in the evening. Running late again, don't wait up. Dinner is in the fridge. Dinner in the fridge? He never did that. He never prepared anything ahead of time, unless he was trying to soften a blow. I stared at the message for a long moment. My chest hurt, but not from sadness. It was something sharper, a kind of clarity that made thinking easy. I typed slowly. Okay. Be safe. No question, no hesitation, nothing for him to read too deeply into. He responded with a thumbs up emoji, a small, careless gesture that stung more than it should have. People put more thought into grocery lists than he put into lying to me now. I waited 15 minutes before leaving the house, long enough for him to believe I had settled into my evening, long enough for him to feel comfortable slipping into his other life without fear of being seen. I drove with the windows down. The air felt cool against my skin, almost grounding. My heartbeat was steady, slower than I expected. I almost felt calm. But calmness wrapped around anger can be dangerous. It steadies the hands, sharpens the thinking, turns pain into purpose. When I reached his office, the parking lot was half lit by the street lamps. His car was there. I parked far enough away that he would not notice me, but close enough to watch. I did not know how long he would stay inside. Affairs have a rhythm, but I had not learned his yet. I watched the entrance. Cars came and went. People left with backpacks, rolled sleeves, tired faces. None of them were him. Then, 40 minutes later, he walked out. He moved quickly, head down, like he was rushing somewhere. Not home, never home. His phone was in his hand. He typed something as he crossed a parking lot. His expression was focused, like he was writing something important, something careful, something secret. He got into his car. I waited until his headlights faded down the street before I started my engine and followed. He took a route I knew well, the same left turn he always took when he said he was heading downtown. But at the last moment, he veered right, a direction that led not to any restaurant or store or office. It led only to one place, her apartment. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. He drove confidently, like this was routine, not risk. He did not check his mirrors. He did not hesitate at turns. He did not act like someone doing something wrong. That was the part that twisted inside me the hardest. He had grown comfortable in his betrayal, settled, secure. He turned into the apartment complex through the side entrance. A gate opened as soon as his car approached, like he had a resident pass or a code. That detail burned. He had access, not just visits, access. I parked outside the complex, lights off, engine running softly. I watched him pull into a parking spot near one of the far buildings. I saw him step out of the car, straighten his jacket, check his hair in the reflection of the window. It was the kind of gesture a man makes before seeing someone he wants to impress. Then I saw her. She walked out of the building toward him with that soft confidence I noticed in her photos. She was wearing something simple, comfortable, clothes you wear for someone you expect to stay a while. Her smile grew as she approached him. He smiled too, a smile I had not seen directed at me in months. My mouth went dry. He reached for her, not like he reached for me, not tired, not distracted, not obligated. He reached for her with intention, his hands settling on her waist like they had a place there. He leaned in and kissed her, slow, familiar, the kind of kiss people share when they do not have to pretend. I felt something close in my chest. Not breaking. Breaking implies something violent, loud. This was quieter, a folding in, a collapsing of something soft into something hard. He placed his hand on the small of her back and guided her inside. They disappeared through the door without looking back. I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers ached. The scene replayed in my head on a loop. His smile, her hand on his arm, the ease of them together, the confidence, the comfort, the familiarity. 8 months, maybe more. I had suspected, I had thought, I had wondered. But there is a difference between imagining betrayal and witnessing it with your own eyes. Imagining gives you space to deny. Seeing gives you none. I turned off the engine and sat in silence, breathing slowly, deliberately, trying to stop the shaking in my hands. People say anger burns hot. That is not true. Real anger is cold. Cold enough to think clearly, cold enough to plan, cold enough to let the truth rest in your bones until it becomes unmovable. My phone buzzed. A message from him. Running even later, don't wait up. I stared at it. He sent that lie while standing inside her apartment. He typed that message with her close enough to touch. I did not respond. I sat there long enough to see the lights in her unit switch on, long enough to imagine them inside, talking, laughing, touching, living a life I never agreed to share. When I finally drove away, the sky had gone fully dark. The streetlights blurred slightly as I passed them. My mind was quiet in a way I had never felt before. Not numb, not shocked, just clear. The truth was complete now. He was not temporarily lost. He was not confused. He was not drifting. He was building a second life while pretending to maintain the first. And I had seen it with my own eyes. He thought he controlled the narrative, but I had finally stepped out of the dark. He kissed her like she was his future, and he lied to me like I was already his past. He just did not know yet that I was not done, not by a long shot, because knowing the truth is one thing, but deciding what to do with it is something else entirely. I did not sleep the night after I followed him, not even for a moment. My mind kept replaying the scene outside her apartment, every detail sharper than the last. His smile, her smile, the way they fit together so easily, so naturally, like they had rehearsed that moment 100 times before. I watched it in my head the way you watch a movie you hate but cannot turn off. Every time it ended, it began again. By sunrise, something inside me had shifted. Not broken, not shattered. Something more controlled, more intentional. I had spent days drowning in disbelief, hours suffocating in the realization that everything I trusted had been an illusion. But now the shock had settled into a kind of stillness, a quiet that felt almost dangerous. My phone buzzed, a message from him. Running even later. Don't wait up. I stared at it. He sent that lie while standing inside her apartment. He typed that message with her close enough to touch. I did not respond. I sat there long enough to see the lights in her unit switch on, long enough to imagine them inside, talking, laughing, touching, living a life I never agreed to share. When I finally drove away, the sky had gone fully dark. The streetlights blurred slightly as I passed them. My mind was quiet in a way I had never felt before. Not numb, not shocked, just clear. The truth was complete now. He was not temporarily lost. He was not confused. He was not drifting. He was building a second life while pretending to maintain the first, and I had seen it with my own eyes. He thought he controlled the narrative, but I had finally stepped out of the dark. He kissed her like she was his future, and he lied to me like I was already his past. He just did not know yet that I was not done, not by a long shot. Because knowing the truth is one thing, but deciding what to do with it is something else entirely. I did not sleep the night after I followed him, not even for a moment. My mind kept replaying the scene outside her apartment, every detail sharper than the last. His smile, her smile, the way they fit together so easily, so naturally, like they had rehearsed that moment 100 times before. I watched it in my head the way you watch a movie you hate but cannot turn off. Every time it ended, it began again. By sunrise, something inside me had shifted. Not broken, not shattered. Something more controlled, more intentional. I had spent days drowning in disbelief, hours suffocating in the realization that everything I trusted had been an illusion. But now the shock had settled into a kind of stillness, a quiet that felt almost dangerous. He had taken the truth out of my hands when he decided to cheat. But what he did not know was that he had just handed me something else, power. When he walked back through the door the next morning, he looked tired, but not the kind of tired that comes from working late. His exhaustion was softer, lazier, the kind that comes from sleeping in someone else's bed, in someone else's arms, with someone else's warmth pressed against his skin. He looked comfortable, content. Guilty people worry about being caught. He did not, because in his mind, he already believed he would never be caught at all. He kissed my cheek as he walked past me. I felt my body tense at the touch, not because I loved him still, but because I could not understand how he managed to live two lives without choking on his own lies. He moved through our house like nothing was wrong, humming faintly under his breath, hanging up his jacket, pouring himself water from the fridge. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I answered. My voice sounded calm, almost too calm. If he heard anything different, he did not show it. He only nodded and walked toward the bathroom, leaving his phone on the kitchen counter. He never left his phone unattended anymore, not for months. My eyes drifted toward it, watching the screen glow faintly beneath the reflection of the overhead lights. For a moment, I considered grabbing it, opening the messages, taking screenshots, digging deeper. But I already had everything I needed. Everything I saw last night filled in the final gaps. I did not need proof anymore. I needed a plan. He showered while I sat at the table, staring at a cup of coffee I knew I would not drink. When he came out, he looked refreshed, whole, like nothing inside him was conflicted. He kissed the top of my head again. That familiar gesture, the one that had once felt affectionate, now felt like a lie trying to disguise itself as love. "I am heading in early," he said. "Big meeting today." The lie was effortless. My response was even easier. "Good luck." He smiled, squeezed my shoulder, then he picked up his phone and left. The moment the door clicked shut, something inside me unclenched. The house felt different without him, larger, like there was finally room for me to breathe. I stood slowly and walked to the window, watching his car disappear down the street. My breath fogged the cold glass as I exhaled. Then I turned and looked around the room. Everything in that house had been built around us. Our framed photos, our wedding album, our souvenirs from trips we took years ago, the couch where we fell asleep watching movies, the bed where we whispered promises, the life I believed was real. But now, every object felt like evidence from a crime scene. Betrayal is not loud. It does not arrive with a warning. It grows quietly, in the spaces where trust dissolves and secrets multiply. And once you finally see it, you can never unsee it again. I spent the next hour gathering the things I needed. Not revenge tools, not weapons, just documents, files, proof of finances, joint accounts, mortgage papers, insurance forms, all the things people forget matter until they suddenly do. Because while he was building a second life, I was preparing to erase the first. Not by screaming, not by crying, not by begging, but by walking away in a way he would never expect. Control is not about volume. It is about direction, and I had finally chosen mine. When I finished gathering everything, I sat quietly at the kitchen table. The house was silent, except for the ticking clock. I stared at my wedding ring again, the one he had placed on my finger with a trembling voice and a promise he had no intention of keeping. I twisted it slowly until it slid off. For the first time since this nightmare began, my hand felt light. I placed the ring on the table. It did not feel like a loss. It felt like release. Hours passed before he texted. Meeting ran long. Going to grab a drink with the team. Might be late. He was not at a meeting. He was not with the team. He was not having a drink. I knew exactly where he was. And this time, I did not follow him, because I no longer needed proof. I no longer needed to witness anything more. I knew his truth, and I knew mine. Instead, I walked to our bedroom, opened the drawer of my nightstand, and took out a blank sheet of paper. I sat on the edge of the bed and wrote only one sentence. "You sent the wrong text." I left it on his pillow, not with anger, not with rage, but with finality. Hours later, I closed the door behind me and stepped into the cool night air. The house felt smaller then, shrinking behind me as I walked to my car. My chest felt strange, not heavy, not empty, just open. Wounds do not close instantly, but sometimes the first breath without a lie inside it can feel like healing. I drove away knowing he would come home to a quiet house, a dark bedroom, an empty closet, and one sentence that would unravel him the way he unraveled me. He would stare at the note. He would read it once, then again. His breath would catch. His world would fracture. And he would realize that the one thing he thought he controlled had slipped out of his grasp. He would realize this wasn't just an ending. This was the consequence. This was the truth echoing back at him. This was the moment he finally understood what I had known since the second his phone lit up in that dark living room. A single mistake can end a lie, and a single sentence can end a marriage. I did not know what my life would look like tomorrow, but I knew one thing. It would be mine again.